What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Math with Mr. G. Hopefully, you had as much fun as possible during the spring break with everything that's going on, and hopefully, you are ready for some more math and you're excited to move on to the next section as much as I am. If you're in algebra, that means we are now moving on from reading and graphing inequalities to now solving for inequalities. If you are in 8th grade, that means we're moving from equations with rational coefficients or one-step equations to two-step equations. And if you're in 7th grade, that means we are moving now from the percent equation to percent of change. If there are any concepts that you feel you need to have some review to refresh, feel free to check out any other videos on the channel. If there's some material that you would like to review but is not on the channel, by all means let me know and I will be more than happy to make that for you. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, algebra students. So once again, the section that we began right before your break was inequalities. So we went over how to read them, how to interpret them, and how to graph them. Now we are moving on to the next section titled Solving Inequalities. So what exactly does that mean? For starters, let's recall up until this point we have seen inequalities in the form of x is greater than 5 or y is less than or equal to 3, z is greater than or equal to 2.5, w is less than -1. All of these inequalities are pretty simple, they're pretty straightforward in the sense that you have your variable, you have your symbol of comparison, and you have an integer or you have a number. However, what would happen if instead of having an inequality like the ones that we've seen so far, if instead we had an inequality in the form a plus 3 is greater than 5. This might look a little confusing. This might look a little, might throw you off that there is an operation taking place. But if we were to momentarily step back and think of this as an equation rather than an inequality, such as a plus 3 is equal to 5, in both cases we have variable a and we have a plus 3 that we want to get rid of. If you recall, when we are working with equations, what this means is if you want to get rid of a plus 3, you neutralize it or you cancel it out with the inverse or with the opposite, which is minus 3. And if you do that, this is going to cancel out and your variable is now alone. You have isolated the variable or you have solved for it, resulting in a is equal to 2. Now let's come back to our inequality. A plus 3 is greater than 5. If you have an inequality that's written in this form and you want to solve for it, all you have to do, simplify like you would an equation. That is, you have a plus 3 that you're trying to get rid of. Simply subtract your 3. Subtract your 3, and once again this is going to cancel out. Your variable is now alone. You have solved for it. Compute the calculation to the right, or 5 minus 3, which is 2. But rather than an equal sign, just carry over the sign that your original inequality had, resulting in a is greater than 2. That is, if you want your original inequality to hold true, you need to input a value that is greater than 2. So if you were to put 2, for instance, 2 plus 3 is greater than 5, well, 2 plus 3 is 5. It's not greater than, But what if you were to input 4? 4 is greater than 2. 4 plus 3 is 7, which is greater than 5. This might seem a little confusing, but in my opinion, it's really simple. It is simply a review of equations. The only difference is the symbol that you use at the end. Let's do a few more examples. Suppose you have x plus 2 is less than or equal to 10. You have y minus 3 is greater than 5. A minus 1 is greater than or equal to negative 2. B plus 10 is less than negative 5. Okay? Once again, we have a variable and we have an operation. For the purposes of this lesson, we are only going to be working with addition and subtraction. So what this means for you is that after you identify your variable, you need to identify which one of these two operations is taking place and simply perform the opposite to solve. So in our first example, we have x plus 2. We want to get rid of that plus 2. As we've discussed before, you get rid of a plus 2 with a minus 2. And because it's algebra, you do the same on both sides. This cancels out. You are left with x. 10 minus 2 is 8. And remember, although the steps are the same as that of an equation, you do not put an equal sign. Simply carry down the sign from your original inequality. And this is your final answer. Next example, we have a minus 3. How do you get rid of a minus 3? Well, the opposite of a minus is plus. So, plus 3, or add 3 on both sides. This cancels out. And you are left with y. 5 plus 3 is 8. And remember the sign from original inequality. Y is greater than 8. And that's your final answer. A minus 1, again, you're working with subtraction. The inverse of subtraction is addition. So to get rid of that minus 1, add 1, add 1. This is going to cancel out. You're left with a negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Bring down the sign. Greater than or equal to. Last example, we have b plus 10 is less than negative 5. You have a plus 10. How do you get rid of a plus 10? With a minus 10. And remember, it is algebra. Do the same on both sides. Those 10s cancel out. b, negative 5 minus 10. We are now working with two negative integers. So remember, even though it's technically subtraction because they are both negative, what you want to do, bring down your negative sign, and then add the numerical value. So 10 plus 5 is 15. Bring down sign from original inequality, and this is your final answer. For homework, all of your problems are going to look like this. Some might ask you to graph, which, if you recall from the last section, we've done before. But if you need a refresher, feel free to check out that video on this channel. And as always, if you have any additional questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to let me know. Send me an email, let me know during class. I will be more than happy to create more material if you think it will be beneficial. Other than that, you guys, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for the next one.